All right. So a couple years back, actually quite a while back, I think my son was 4 and my daughter was 3. They're now like 21, 20. But we went to a Reds game. Any parents in here with young kids, show of hands online, give us a thumb. Anybody? Don't ever take them to a Reds game. Okay? Worst ever. I'm not kidding you. It's 1,000,000 degrees in the summer. They're all over you. It's hot, sweaty. And they're like, oh, can we get... Every half inning, you get another request for popcorn, hot dogs, walk around. It was crazy. Well, anyways, we're like fourth quarter, or not fourth quarter, football. We're in the fourth inning. And in the middle of this game, I kid you not, and this is a true story. I lie a lot. This is actually a true story. I am literally like sitting there. I think I'm holding Tate, and my wife has my daughter Tegan. And the people behind us are all like kind of college age. So I'd say like mid-20s, young 20s. And they are feeling it. I mean, they're having a good time. The Reds may be bad, and they're already down 8 runs in the fourth inning, but they are feeling it. And they're loud, and it's all fine. And about that time in the fourth inning, one of the girls says something to the other and bumps her. I could not make this up like a movie. And literally, she spills her beer. And when she does, it's like a perfect waterfall. Like, it doesn't hit me somehow. It really doesn't. It like comes a little bit of me, but it basically drenches Tayden, my son, and like doesn't really get John much, but then gets my daughter. So they're just drenched in beer, right? And about that time, I look back, and this girl, 20-some, freaks out. I mean, she loses her mind. She looks like she's about to cry. She's like talking real sporadic, and she's probably hammered a little bit too. But she said, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm like, look, it's fine. The Reds stink. I wish I could drink right now, but I got to drive these people. Like, I get it completely. And in the middle of that, she's like, no, the kids. So she's about ready to cry. She grabs her friend's beer and literally says, pour it on me. She hands me the cup, and I'm like, no, listen, we don't care. Like, it's no harm done. We could care less right now. They'll be fine. The kids don't even notice. They're just sticky now. And she's like, no, please pour the beer on me. It'll make me feel so much better. So I was like, okay. No, I didn't pour it on her. I'm like, look, lady, I'm not baptizing you in Bud Light today. We'll just, let this be the day. Let's move on. And the reason I say that is because that's probably in my life one of the true moments where I was like, what an overreaction. I get she felt guilty. I get she didn't love it. It was kids. But she overreacted. She was begging me to pour a beer all over her, right? As crazy as that sounds. This morning, as we kick off this new series, I want to talk about how reactions speak louder than words. You ever hear the phrase, like, actions speak louder? Yeah, I think actions speak louder than words, but I think reactions speak way louder than words. And what I've kind of learned is if you want someone to stop and stare in your life, all you parents in here with young kids, you know this as well as anyone. When you're in the grocery store and they want something and they're losing their mind, if you want other people to stop and stare, it's always an overreaction. Then we overreact because we're embarrassed and we're ashamed of them. So everybody overreacts. And I was even thinking of this for those of you who have teenage daughters and sons, right? Teenagers, I love them. We just raised ours kind of through that age. But teenagers, right, are the king and queen of overreacting. Literally, your daughter comes in and she's just bawling. You're like, okay, someone's died. This is really bad in my mind. And it's like, no, Taylor broke up with me. When did you start dating Taylor, right? It's like a week ago? Why are you freaking out? It's like 4 days. Like, it was more serious than you think. We've been together at least a week and a half. It was supposed to be our 2-week anniversary. He broke. I mean, you're like, and I get, in their world, right, it's not like you minimize it, but you're like, in the grand scheme of things, when you get older, you're probably going to laugh about this as well. We overreact. Well, I want to share a story this morning that to me is one of the greatest underreactions ever recorded in the Bible. It's in the Old Testament. So what we're going to do over the next 4 weeks, this series, we're going to talk about 2 Kings 5, one chapter, and we're going to talk about 4 different characters now. I'm going to talk first about this person. Then next week, Fields will be here. He's going to talk about the king who gets in panic mode. And then I'm going to come back and talk about Naaman, the general, and kind of why he goes off. And then we're going to talk about the prophet. So that's kind of the schedule, just so you know. But here's what I want you to picture. I want you to imagine this morning. Picture let's do this. Anyone, I won't embarrass you. Anyone in this room, a girl that would be like 12 and under, would you raise your hand? Would you be bold enough to do that? No, you don't. You think I'll call you up? I won't, okay? Does anyone have a daughter who's like 10 years old? Anybody? Okay. Yes, okay. Gotcha. What grade are you in? Your mom can speak for you. What? Going in 4th grade. Okay. So you don't stare at her. That's embarrassing. Everybody look at me, okay? But when she leaves, this cute little girl, when she walks out, I want you to picture, okay, this 3rd to 4th grade type girl. This is probably the girl we're talking about story. I'll give you a backdrop. I want you to imagine a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old girl, maybe at her house in Israel, playing with dolls. And in the middle of the day, you hear this loud noise, and you hear all these soldiers come in. They tear the door down, and these men grab you, put you on a horse, and ride you off miles and miles away from home. And you never see your mom and dad again. Okay, now think about that. Think about being that age. You go from maybe playing with dolls or whatever you're into at that time to now you go in and you walk in this house, and there's a soldier, a military soldier. It looks like a general, kind of a big deal, and his wife, and they say to you, "You're our servant now." No, you're our slave now. That's how it works. So I want you to picture now with me as we get into just these 3 verses, a 10-year-old girl who now is working as a maid, as a servant for a family, pulled out of her home, doing a job she never wanted to do, never to see her brothers, sisters, parents, nobody ever again. Okay, this is the world that she's in. This is what it says in verse 1. It says, "The king of Aram had great admiration for Naaman, the commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy, a skin disease. At this time, Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives," that's underlined in my Bible, "among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid." So I'm going to set this story up for you, okay? You're in a 10, like I said, 11-year-old girl. You've been away from home for months now. And every day, someone walks in that family and hands you a broom, and you sit and sweep because you're a servant. And one day you notice as you're sweeping, you listen to the wife who's over you, and she's talking to her husband, and they're having conversations like this, like he's talking about his skin disease. And he's like, "Honey, I've got to hide it. If they see that, I could not only lose my job, I could lose my rank, we could lose everything we have. It's a huge deal." And every day you sit and sweep and listen to them argue or figure out how they're going to handle this skin disease in this time period, which is almost a death sentence. So as you're sweeping, again, pretend like I'm a 10-year-old girl, right? Is that far-fetched? You know what bothered me more? Most of you didn't even be bothered by that. Do I look like a 10-year-old girl? My mom says I'm cute. Anyways, so just sweeping. And in the middle of this, you hear them talking about it again. Now, this next verse I'm going to read blows my mind. Verse 3, it says, "One day the girl said to her mistress, 'I wish,'" also underline my Bible. Now, can I just be honest with you guys? If Trent Carpenter was in that moment, in that very setting, and I've been pulled away from my home, and I hate these people, and I don't want to work for them, I didn't ask to do this, and life's not fair, and it's all terrible, and in that moment when they're talking about that, I would speak up and say, "I wish," okay? They're over here trying to figure out what they're going to do. I would say, "I wish," you know what I would have said? "I wish you would both die." Right? No, I wish that it eats all of his flesh and bones. And then when you hopefully get sick and get with it, when you're laying in your bed, I'm going to smother you with your pillow. That's what I wish. Look what she says. She says, "I wish my master would go see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy." This girl quits sweeping, stops, looks at people who have taken her captive, and she says, "I wish you'd go see a guy who could help you, who could heal you." Now, I don't know about you guys, but that is probably literally the greatest underreaction ever. We all could have reasons why we would overreact, what we would say, but this person chooses to underreact. Why? This morning, I just want to take a few minutes and kind of share with you some thoughts, I think. And maybe if we can catch this and kind of how this works, then maybe it can help us live in a world where we can get people to stop and stare too. Not stop and stare because we're overreacting to stuff, but actually stop and stare because we learn the art and the skill of underreaction. So just a couple thoughts. First is this. You don't have to match energy to prove identity. Let me say that again. You don't have to match energy to prove identity. You don't. I told you guys before, we went 4th of July. We were on vacation, came back through. Some friends of ours decided to go and stay with them at a lake house. And I told the lady, I said, "I'm going to share this sometime because it just amazed me." So when we went, there's another couple who's C3ers. They're with us, who are here this morning. And so I won't use any names. But they have a little boy who's like 4 or 5. And I love him because he's wide open. He is. I mean, he is straight, wide open. But I also love because my daughter, I think they share the same kind of brain, even though she's 20. They're like best friends. She's with him all the time. But if you watch my daughter, she always gets him riled. Like, she's constantly, like, just messing with him. She'll get him in trouble. Then when he gets in trouble, she's like, yeah, you're annoying, Mac. Like, she calls him. It's like 2 4-year-olds. Okay, I'm not making stuff. We were at the house the first day, and I watched him come by, and he hit her in the ribs pretty hard. And I looked at her, and I was like, probably shouldn't do. Like, I'm just trying to be a little bit of a parent here. And she went, no, don't get mad at him. I punched him a second ago. I'm like, you're freaking 20 years old. Why are you hitting a 4-year-old? Like, this is so weird. But she gets him going all the time. And then when he's all riled up and gets in trouble, then she just adds to it. Yeah, she hasn't got in trouble. Mac. Yeah, I said his name. His name's Mac. Anyways, you can figure it out. But in the middle of that, the person that we're staying with, this lady, it was unreal. I kid you not. She would be like, come sit with me, Mac. Be sitting on her lap. And I watched this. I watched this with my own eyes. She would rub his shoulder and be like, you're the best boy. You're the sweetest boy. And we're all like, no, I don't think so. And he would be. He would be. So my running joke, I even told my wife when we get in bed, I'm like, I called her the Mac Whisperer. Literally. It's like he changes. Now, why am I telling you that? Because I think there's a deeper point to all of this. We will act the way we believe we are, truly. And when you know who you are, you don't have to copy who they are. It's truly an identity thing. We'll either live up or live down to who we believe we are as people. And there actually is kind of a powerful thing with even that kind of story, because if you think about it, if I believe I'm a good kid, if I believe, yeah, I'm a sweet kid, right? I act like what I believe. But then when people tell me, even if it's not true of me, if people say, oh, no, you're a screw up, you're the idiot, you're the worst of the siblings, you're the one that mom and dad didn't even want. Like, you live up or down to what you truly believe about yourself. But what's the honest problem here? Okay, let's put it out on Front Street. The problem is, though, when someone wrongs me, I don't know about you guys, you're probably more sophisticated than me. When someone wrongs me, I want to retaliate, right? I want to match energy. So you come at me, all right, it's on. Like, you kind of get excited a little bit, your blood starts flowing, right? Get online, someone says something like, well, they don't talk about. Some of you are post-warriors. Why? Because you want to match energy. A friend of mine, my wife will verify this, he told us this a while back. A friend of mine who's a truck driver, so he's probably low 50s, probably, I don't know, a little bit older than me, but he's in his low 50s. And he told me, he said, I saw him in a restaurant. And I was like, what's going on with you? And he said, well, and he told me this story. My wife was with me in a restaurant. He said, I'm driving the truck down I-64 the other day. His name's Keith. And he said, this other truck, like, he said, this real fat guy, that's what he called him. Even though I was like, Keith, you're not in the best shape. But okay, go ahead. He was like, he cut me off. And when he did, he said, I just laid on the horn. Like, he said, one of those days I was in a bad mood, I was just laying on the horn. He said, so he puts his hand out the window, driver's side, and tells me I'm number one. And he was like, it's on. He said, so I was like, what do you do? He said, I flew up and got right beside him, and he said, we're exchanging pleasantries back and forth in the trucks. And he said, in the middle of me calling him something, he looked at me and said, pull over then. He's like, yes. He said, literally on I-64, he pulls his truck over on the side of the interstate. I pull in right behind him. He said, I walk around to the back side of my truck. He comes out. He said, true story, 2 50-year-old men. He said, we lunge at each other. He said, I swung at him, missed, haven't fought in a while. And he said, he falls into me. He said, as soon as his head hit my shoulder, he said, he punched me in the ribs one time. I was like, ugh. And he said, I was getting ready to hit him again. And he said, Trent, I'm so out of shape, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. So he said, I'm sitting there breathing hard like he's going to kill me now. I can't even move. And he said, the only saving grace was I could hear he was wheezing louder than me. He said, I thought he's going to have a heart attack for me. He said, this is so awesome. He said, so I literally set my hips and said, buddy, you want to quit? That's what Keith said. He said, no, this guy said, he went, please. He said, we literally parted ways, shook hands, just called it a day. Back in your truck. Yeah, we don't need to fight anymore. But here's the bottom. As dumb as that true story is, we do that. Now, you're maybe not fighting off I-64, but when your spouse comes at you, when someone pushes your buttons, someone triggers you, then you're like, okay, it's on now. At home, we do that. We do this with our kids. We do it with our spouses. We do it with family members. We think it's the way to retaliate. But Peter, who walked with Jesus and watched him do a lot of stuff, he actually watched him die when Peter abandoned him, and he watched Jesus come back to life. He wrote a letter to some people after Jesus had resurrected. And he said, you know, what really kind of amazed me about Jesus was the way that he reacted. And here's what he says in 1 Peter 2:23. He said, talking about Jesus, he said, he did not retaliate when he was insulted, nor threaten revenge when he suffered. He left his case in the hands of God, who always judges fairly. Now, did you catch that? He's like, when you stop swinging back, you start standing out. And Jesus stood out all the time to us because we would constantly be walking and like, hey, do you know those people hate you? Yes. What are you going to do about it? He moved on. He knew. Why? Because if you remember when Jesus got baptized, remember he goes down the water, comes back up with John, and they said they literally heard from the heavens, said, this is my son who I love, who I'm really pleased with. Just like I said about the Mac whisper, right? Jesus literally got whispered by the Father like, no, you're my son. I love you. I'm pleased with you. So because Jesus knew who he was, he didn't have to step down to other people. He didn't have to answer every critic. He didn't have to freak out when someone questioned why he did what he did. He lived in a much different peace. Why? Because he knew who he was. Jesus never let the crowd decide his character. Now, I hope this morning, I hope this happens every week for all of you that's here. But if you ever hear me in the middle of this, because here's one pushback, I get it. You're like, Trent, that sounds good. It's fairy tale, sure, but it sounds good. I can't do that. So all I'm hearing from you, Trent, is now I need to forgive people who wrong me. I need people to walk on me. They can abuse me. I'm not saying that. I'm in a bad relationship. I should say, no, leave. I'm talking about what you do long term when you hang on to stuff in little moments. I'm not talking about abuse. I'm talking about everyday little fights, right? With my spouse, when she says something, I'm like, ooh, what do you say that for? Is it go time? No. They're like, Jesus didn't do that. So I hope you hear this morning. I'm not asking you to do more. I hope every week you hear me say, I'm not asking you to do more. I'm asking you to believe better. I'm asking you to believe more. John 6:29, one of my favorite verses. The followers of Jesus are walking to him, and they're like, what do you want us to do? We get who you are. What do you want us to do? And he's like, so you want something to do? You want work? Yeah. What's the work? He says, the only work I want you to do is believe in the one the Father sent, me. And could you imagine them? They're like, yeah, Jesus, we get it. Yeah, we believe. We do believe. But we need something else to do. And he's like, no, it's not do more. I need you to believe more. So first thought, you don't match energy with your identity. Second thought, real quick, you don't need power to be powerful. This little girl doesn't even have a name. We never know her name throughout all of history. She has no power, yet her voice didn't sound powerful, but it was. It was. Why? Because she understood, I don't have to be in power to even be powerful. I don't have to let other people consume. You ever talk to people and they're like, well, they just made me mad. I always tried that real hard with my kids. Never to pull like, well, no one can make you do anything. So one step back a little bit, get out of it. But here's Paul, another writer. He said this about it. He said, okay, so you're going to face some tough times. You're going to have some people oppose you. Life's going to be tough because we live in a broken world. We're all broken. I've hurt people. People have hurt me, right? All of you have hurt somebody at some point. But he says this. He says, what shall we say about such wonderful things as these? If God is for us, who can ever be against us? You know, I want you guys to believe more and more today. I hope this is the best news you'll ever hear. God this morning is telling you, I want you to know I'm for you. And if God is for me, who can be against me? But secondly, I'm not just for you. I actually want for you freedom. I want you free. And some of you in this room, and myself included at times, watching online, we don't live free. And I think that breaks God's heart more than anything because he's like, no, I want you to be free. Now, Matt McClellan will like this. There's a quote from Rogue One. And they're in prison, and one guy says to the other, he says, they're talking about like the struggles, things they're going with, and he says, there's more than one sort of prison captain. I sense that you carry yours wherever you go. Now, some of you Star Wars fans are like, oh, cool, Trent likes Star Wars. No, I don't. I've never seen the movie. I actually heard it on a podcast and looked it up. And I get some of you are geeking out, Star Wars, yay, right? I was talking to someone earlier, and they're like, you need to watch making fun of Star Wars people. What if they try to fight you? I'll take my chances, right? Not that worried about the Star Wars fans. No offense, right? Watch some jack dude stand up. I like Star Wars. Just kidding. I love it too. We'll watch everyone. No, but catch this. I sense wherever you go, you're living in a prison. You don't have to be locked up. You're actually stuck in this because you're holding on to stuff that God's like, no, I need you to let go of that. I sense you're in a prison wherever you go. You carry it with you. Jesus in Luke, he's kind of making his baller statement where he's going to come out and kind of announce who he is. And he walks in the temple and he's like, hand me the scroll, Isaiah, give it to me. And he reads, but what he reads is so amazing. He says, basically, the Messiah's here. You're looking at him. But here's his phrase. He says, you'll know when I'm here because the deaf will hear, the blind will see, and the captives will be set free. And he literally says, he sets it down, sets back down, and says, the time has come. One of the main things Jesus wanted to do in his time on earth was to set us free. You don't have to live in prisons either inflicted by other people or self-inflicted. That's the beauty of the good news. So what I want to do this morning real quick, I want to talk about just two elephants, give you a little thought, we'll get out of here. Okay, let's talk about the elephants in the room. Here they are, okay? What's the first elephant? Let's get a little deep for a second. If you're here maybe for the first time or you're kind of kicking the tires and trying to figure out all this Jesus stuff, here's what I would say. Your first kind of kickback, and I get it, you'd be like, Trent, you have no clue, though. You see, I get you're probably talking about, oh, someone wrote you an anonymous letter at C3 and it hurt your feelings. Oh, someone online is bashing you and saying you're a call, da-da-da. Who cares? I'm talking about more serious stuff. Like, do you know the guy I work with? He's a Republican. Right? Do you know the girl that I work with? She's a Democrat. I drove by their house, so they're watching CNN. Right? That guy has Fox News every day. Yeah. Even that's kind of, we're all like, it's not that big. Let's go deeper, though. Some of you are like, Trent, that's all fine and dandy, but people who are supposed to love me abuse me. People that when I was in my formative years and needed people to lean on, they didn't show. Trent, they left. And you're going to have the nerve on stage when you have no clue about my story, and you're going to sit here and tell me how I should feel? Nah, that's not for me. And I get it. I really, honestly do. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a grandpa now, just this past week, and he has two sons, and one of his sons adopted a little boy when he was 4, or going through the adoption process, and they finally adopted him when he was 5. And he said, this kid's from birth to 4. It was awful. He said, I can't even tell you how awful it was. But he said, it really hit me hard because when they finally adopted him, they're going to have a celebration. He was like, I want everybody to come stay with Papaw. So he said, here's my 2 grandsons from my other, son. They're there. And then here's this new boy. And he comes in. He's 5 years old. And he said, I said, hey, it's celebration night. We're going to have a party. We're going to have a pizza party. What do you want on your pizza? And he said, one of the boys like, pepperoni cheese, but whatever. He said, this little guy at 5 literally looked up and he said, do I get to eat too? Think about that. That's literally 5 years of neglect summarized in one sentence. And he was dead serious. Will I get to eat too? And he said, listen, man, as long as you're here, you always eat. You eat whatever you want. We don't care. Said he just smiled. Right? I get that. Some of you here, you're like, that's the elephant in the room. You're going to sit and tell me how I should feel about something that was horrific done to me? I'm not, I promise. I also think the second elephant in the room, though, we have to talk about is if you're calling me out, you're like, Trent, look, I work in a factory, okay? You have no clue. In your little church world where you and Aaron and Alicia maybe debate Bible verses or whatever you guys do all day, none of us know, right? It's like you do nothing, surely. But when you're doing your little church stuff, I get it. But in my world, no, you've got to match force with force. They'll step all over you. I get it. I get it. But can I ask you guys a question this morning just to think through real quick? What if I would challenge you with this? Okay, pretend like everything I've said up to this point is nonsense. None of us are going to do it. We don't care. It doesn't work in the real world. Here's what I'd challenge you to do then, okay? Next time someone hurts you, try to pay them back double. When you're really worked up inside, lean into it. I mean, really, like get more upset with them, create narratives about how they're trying to ruin your life. Do that. Do it. I'll tell you another thing. Since you're going to do that, you're probably going to learn not to trust people because they're all going to mess you over. So don't ever trust anybody either. Don't you dare for 1 second think you can get close to somebody, get to know them because why? Other people left you. So treat everybody like they are there to hurt and harm you. Like, ask you guys, does that sound good? Deep down, we all know we don't want to live that way, but we have the freedom to choose. So last thing, just real fast. And here's kind of the big idea of this. Here's what I think both the writers are trying to say, and here's what I think the girl understood. If God holds the outcome, if God really does hold the outcome, then you and I can let go of the outrage. If we believe that. If we really believe that it's in God's hands and not mine. Remember what Peter said? He said he trusts everything to God. He entrusted what? God, the one who sees it all. He does it all. He can figure it out. If we really believe that, why would this little girl be willing to drop literally her broom and walk over and say, I wish you guys knew a guy I knew because he would help him right now? There's only one way she could do that. She truly believed that God was in control. And here's the good news today. If God's truly in control, that means I don't have to be, and neither do you. Some of you type A personalities in here like me, right? We get it. We're organized, disciplined. We'll fight through. I get it. I get it. That's my world too. But can I say this to you? Sometimes when we hear the good news, it says, no, since God's in control, I don't have to be. You know what we get to do? Take a deep breath. We can relax in that. So as we get ready to close, I want to share the greatest sermon I ever heard or watched on the Underreaction. Greatest one I've ever seen. And I wasn't going to say it in this one. I told it in the 9:30, but if my mom's in here, I didn't want to share it. It's kind of personal. But as I was walking out, another lady who's in the worship band, she said, you should say that again. I was like, I'm not going to. She's like, you should say it. Greatest message ever was not in a church, wasn't with church people. I told you guys before, some of you grew up, like literally you're born baptized in the church. Awesome for you. Not my story. Our family, a little bit different. But anyways, I'm saying grown up church-wise. I remember watching, though, when I was a teenager, someone who had mistreated my mom. And I didn't even know the whole story until I started getting older and kind of catching bits and pieces. But I watched someone who had mistreated my mom at a different level than what many of us experience. And I watched when that person became down and out and in need. And I remember in my mind thinking, this is the time. You lay it on them. And I watched my mom. I was in a room with her once, and I watched her show more compassion to this human than I think they ever deserved. Didn't bat an eye. I'm telling you guys, that was the greatest moment I've ever seen of the greatest underreaction. The time you could have let it all hang out, you could have just unloaded, you could have told them all the things that they've taken from you, how bad it's been, and I watched this person not do that. I watched them actually show more love than I've ever seen. And I'm telling you guys, you want to make people stop and stare? They stop and stare when we overreact. But that was the day that I stopped, sat down, and watched my mom underreact in the greatest way. So, good news. Can we put the verse back up there, please, Scott? Last one. Verse 2. It says, at this time, Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel. Underlined in my Bible is, among their captives was a young girl. See, this little girl actually is smarter than you realize because she learned something by dropping the broom. She realized, and you're going to, like I said in this story, Aaron talk about the king next week, he's trapped. Naaman, you're going to learn the week after I come back, he's trapped. The week after that, you're the prophet. They all have issues. This girl, the only one that they say is captive, is actually the most freest person. She's the freest person in this whole story. How? She's captive. No. She is the most free because she realized my circumstances don't dictate this. God does. God is the one. So, as we get ready to close, I would share this with you. Let's say some of you in here, you're getting clutched. I can't do it. You can't. I get it, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I really am. But I'll say this for you. I'm gonna flip it on you for a second. You're looking at me and you're like, Trent, there's no way I could never forgive them. If you knew, if I told you the story, it'd break your heart. Yes, I get all that. Can I ask you a question? Let's say you can't do it. Is there anyone here that you pray every day that your kids will hold resentment and anger and literally have a chip on their shoulder every day? They'll never let anybody in because they don't trust anybody. Anytime someone does the slightest thing to them, they lose their mind because they unravel, because they can't handle anything. I know this. I don't want that for my kids, and I would argue all you parents in here, you don't want that either. I go a step further. My kids are getting older now. I can promise you this. I pray daily that whoever they marry isn't like that. Because imagine this. Take it in for a second. Imagine someone you love who in the middle of when people come at them, they're like, it's okay. Imagine someone when you're like, oh, you should so be spiraling. I'm not. I'm okay. But things aren't working out your way. It's okay. I don't think I'm in control of everything. I've accepted that. And I trust that a good, good father is. And because of that, I can... That's freedom. That's the freedom I want you guys to live in, not in these self-made and self-inflicted prisons and prisons that other people have put you in. So here's your homework, okay, if you can do this. I would challenge you one time this week. I want you to kind of think about, maybe it's not that deep, maybe it's not a childhood trauma, but I want you to think about maybe someone you work with, maybe someone you go to school with, maybe someone, neighborhood, that just pushes all your buttons. And I'm going to challenge you this week. Maybe the person who pushes your button, right, is sitting beside you. They have a name. It's called your husband, right? And they are so good at it. They know every day how to come in. There we go. They're just doing it. I get it. What would it look like for you one time this week to say, I'm going to underreact? I'm telling you, people will stop and stare. Literally, they will. Some of you here, you might cause a heart attack from your spouse. You'll say something that's going to get heated, and you're going to say, look, I'm sorry. Just cool down. Oh, what's wrong with you? I was laughing about my brother. I shouldn't tell this, but I don't care. It made me laugh. My older brother's trying to be healthier. Awesome. Good for him. But my sister-in-law was telling my wife, said they've started cooking at the house. And he's like, start cooking, just be healthier, just eat healthier. And said he was cooking one night, and my niece, the youngest, came home, saw him cooking. She just went in the other room, dejected, basically in tears. So my sister-in-law said, what's wrong? And she said, Dad's dying, isn't he? Right? I mean, I'm saying, some of you, your underreactions, they'll be like, some of you kids, you do that for the first time because they know when you wake up in that mood, parents are all on eggshells, you walk in and someone says something that gets heated and you're like, it's okay. Your parents literally might be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? Right? Some of you here, literally, with your parents, they might be like, is my mom dying? She never acts like this. Choose the underreaction. And I promise you, people will stop and stare. So this morning, as we get ready to pray, I'm not asking you to do more. I'm not asking you to be better. I'm not asking you to pick up yourself. I'm not. I'm going to ask if you would believe more. Because this girl, I don't think she set out to say, I'm going to change the day. I'm going to be good. No, I think she just trusted that God was in control. And if God's in control, then I don't have to be. So if you would, let's just close our eyes for just a second. I'd like to pray. Father, I thank you so much for this group of people. So thankful for people watching online. God, I do pray. I know for a lot of us in this room, we're probably the king and queens, even as adults, of overreacting. And sadly, God, I think we overreact too many times to the people we care about most. But I pray today, as we walk out of these doors, we would realize that you want to give us freedom. Freedom as we trust you more. Freedom to realize I don't have to respond with the same energy. I don't have to chase people because they've hurt me. I don't have to allow people to keep me locked up in a prison, and they don't care about me anyways. I'm actually free. God, I pray today that we would learn that freedom comes not only from trusting more, but from realizing you hold it all together. So the more we trust you, and the more we can see ourselves as your children, deeply and fully loved by you, then those moments become a little less. So today I pray we would be a people that underreact this week, even when it warrants a very justified reaction. We choose to underreact. And maybe, just maybe, people will see a little bit of you in us this week as we love others the way that you've loved us already, as we forgive others the way you've already forgiven us. Help us to walk in that. Help us to live in that good news. More joy, more peace, more calm as we trust you more. Father, I thank you so much for giving your Son as the ultimate sacrifice for our love so that we can have life in you. Let us live that out this week. Thank you, and we ask this in your Son's name, and amen. Guys, hope you have a great week. Love to see you back for week 2 of Trigger. Take care.